Looking for the ultimate AMD Ryzen 7 5800X3D gaming PC, including the best motherboards, RAM, cooler, and more? Let's build it. Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. Now, with the launch of both Ryzen 7000 and Intel 13th Gen CPUs, few people expected the Ryzen 5800X3D to maintain its status as one of the fastest gaming CPUs on the planet. But not only does it shine against its competition, it does so at a huge price discount, allowing gamers to invest more in their graphics card and get the maximum FPS for their money. So today, we're gonna build the best Ryzen 5800X3D gaming PC to see for ourselves how awesome it is and to guide you through everything you need to know to build your own. If you get value out of the video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. Before that, this video is sponsored by VIP SSD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows 10 licenses and that terrible Activate Windows 10 watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SSD Key, and get a Windows 10 Home or Pro OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 25% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom, you have a fully licensed Windows 10 for a crazy low price, which can be upgraded for free to Windows 11. Use the links in the video description below. Now this build, it's extra special because as many of you know, my wife and I have been playing World of Warcraft since Wrath of the Lich King launched many years ago. With the launch of the new DragonFlight expansion upon us, our guild leader reached out to me for advice on a build list to replace his ancient gaming PC, a 4th generation Intel build with a liquid cooler that uses exposed plastic tubing. Yes, it's that old. So I told him we're gonna build you an ultimate gaming PC. We considered the i5-13600K, the Ryzen 7700X, and the 5800X3D. Well, any of these would have been great. We ultimately went with the Ryzen 7 5800X3D due to its low power consumption, easy cooling, and the way cheaper DDR4 RAM. Did we make the right choice? Let's go through the build and find out. Remember, links to everything is down in the video description, so check out current pricing and availability in your region. For the motherboard, there are so many great options for the Ryzen 5800X3D. But do remember that given how recently it came out, I strongly recommend that you get a B550 or X570 motherboard with BIOS flashback to ensure you can update the BIOS on the motherboard if it doesn't have one that will run the 5800X3D out of the box. And while I used to say make sure to get B550 rather than X570 for best price to performance, the fact is that right now you can find either one of them for the same $140 to $200 price point. We went with the Gigabyte Aorus Elite B550, which typically retails for about $140, includes an upgraded ALC 1200 audio codec, a ton of rear panel USB connectivity, 2 M.2 SSD slots, and it's just an all-around great board for the price. Now for alternatives, we've got a whole video on the best motherboards for Ryzen 5000, and you can check it out. I'll leave a link to it down in the video description. But for a 5800X3D gaming build, my top picks would be the Aorus B550 Pro, Elite X570, MSI B550 Tomahawk or Gaming Edge Wi-Fi, or the Asus TUF B550 Plus, or ROG Strix B550A or -F. They're all great boards with similar features. I'll leave links to all of them in the video description, and you can just pick the one that you like the best. Now note, there are some great ASRock B550s as well for really cheap, but none of them come with BIOS flashback. So for the moment, I'd hold off on these. Let's talk about the GPU, because the price efficiency of the Ryzen 7 5800X3D platform really allows us to grab the biggest GPU for our budget, hence the most FPS. Now here we went with the EVGA for the Win 3 RTX 3080 12GB GPU, mostly because we have one and it looks awesome in the build. This GPU will likely be a collector's edition in the future now that EVGA is not making GPUs anymore. But as an alternative, you can go with anything up to an RTX 4090, including the newly launched RTX 4080 or upcoming Radeon RX 7900 XTX or 7900 XT. The RTX 3080 or RX 6800 XT, that's really the lowest GPU that I would go here. As for anything less, something like the cheaper Ryzen 5600X would be absolutely fine. And then we could invest the price difference into an even faster GPU. I will note that the 5800X3D does leave a little bit of performance on the table at 1440p with the new NVIDIA RTX 4080 and 4090. But at 4K, the CPU bottleneck absolutely disappears. Honestly, these are 4K GPUs anyway, and I'd only spend more on a CPU for like a 13900K or Ryzen 7700X if I've already maxed out the GPU to the 4090 and I had money left over. Let's talk about RAM, which is so much more simple than dealing with DDR5 RAM on the i5-13600K or the Ryzen 5700X. Now, fast DDR4 RAM is plentiful and it's cheap. For only about $70, you can grab a 2x8GB kit of DDR4 3600 CL16 RAM, plug it in, set the XMP or DOCP profile in the BIOS, and that's it. Now, we spent an extra $16 to get a very nice Corsair Vengeance RGB RAM kit, because RGB, of course. Just remember that if you intend to game at 1440p or 4K, RAM speed matters a lot less, even with ultra-fast GPUs, than it does at 1080p, because we're more likely to become GPU bound at the higher resolutions. Now, if you are dead set on getting 32GB of RAM, consider going 4 sticks of 8GB to ensure dual rank, not to be confused with dual channel, as not all 2x16GB kits are dual rank. This will give us about 3 to 7% more performance overall in gaming at 1080p. If you are going with an RTX 4090, you can of course consider going with DDR4 4000 CL16 RAM, but just note there appears to be diminishing returns, and manually tuned 3800 CL16 often slightly outperforms 4000 CL16 XMP profile RAM in games. Additionally, we want the memory clock to run on a 1-to-1 basis with the Infinity Fabric, and many Ryzen CPUs struggle to run 4000 CL16 RAM at this setting. That being said, there really isn't any benefit of this faster RAM at 1440p or 4K, so I wouldn't spend money on this unless we've already maxed out our GPU to an RTX 4090. For the cooler, we've got so many great options because how power efficient the Ryzen 5800X3D is, and the fact that it's not overclockable. That being said, it does run hotter than the regular 5800X, so we wouldn't want to go with a budget tower air cooler even if we're just gaming. Now, we decided to bling out the system on a budget with an id cooling ARGB 240mm all-in-one liquid cooler, specifically the ZoomFlow 240X Snow Edition. This is definitely a budget AIO cooler though, as it has less performance and the pump's a little noisier than the more expensive but better AIOs like the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 or EKAIO. If you want to go air cooling instead, I'd look for a 6 heat pipe mid-range CPU cooler like the Thermalright Peerless Assassin, which right now is only going for $40 and ARGB. And you can always go up to something like the Scythe Fuma 2 Revision B or the Deepcool AK620 for only about $65. The great thing about AIOs is both the amazing looks and the fact that their prices have come way down. Right now, the ZoomFlow 240X goes about $75 for the Snow Edition. And there are a lot of other great AIOs out there that we cover in our Best Coolers for Ryzen 2022 video if you want more options. Remember, links to everything are down in the video description. Now for storage, I recommend just getting a budget NVMe SSD for gaming, as there's really no benefit to getting anything faster. And the budget NVMe drives, they're as cheap as $57 for 1 terabyte, which is totally insane. The Silicon Power A60, Western Digital SM350, and Team Group MP33 highlight a long list of ultra affordable DRAM-less NVMe SSDs. Now, if you do a lot of file writes for some reason, then you can grab a more prosumer level PCIe Gen 3 drive like the Silicon Power A80, and for those of you needing super fast writes for large volume production workloads, PCIe Gen 4 drives, they become quite affordable, like the Team Group Cardea Zero Z440, or the drive that we went with, which is the Aorus Gen 4 7000S 2TB NVMe, which comes with a beefy heatsink, and honestly, it looks really fantastic in the build. And right now, the 1TB version, it's just $99. Another area that the Ryzen 5800X3D allows us to save money on the platform cost, it's the power supply. The Ryzen 5800X3D is more power efficient than either the Ryzen 7700X or i5-13600K, and in many cases, that can be the difference between needing a higher capacity PSU and a cheaper power supply. If you haven't seen our best PSU buying guide for 2022, we recommended taking the total system draw estimated in PC Part Picker and multiplying that by 1.5. Then if you're using a high-end RTX GPU, adding another 100 watts to it. While this is likely very conservative, we've decided to err on the side of caution, given the huge transient power spikes of the RTX 3000 series GPUs, as well as the massive power draw of new high-end CPUs and GPUs. Given our estimated system draw of 569 watts, Our PSU requirement then comes out to 953 watts using our formula. So we went with the MSI MPG A1000G, an A-tier rated 1000 watt PSU on the PSU cultist list. It's a fantastic fully modular design, and if you're using a case with a PSU shroud cutout, then it looks quite amazing as well. Now for the case, I wanted our guild leader to have something that looks super cool. So it came down to the Deepcool CK560 white for about $89 or the new Fantex G360A for about $100. Now ultimately we went with the Deepcool CK560, which does appear to be sold out in the US, but you can pick up the nearly identical CG560 for only $79, and it comes with 3 ARGB front fans as well as a non-RGB rear 140mm fan. It has 2 front panel USB 3 Type A connectors and a USB Type C connector. It's very well constructed case, but the front panel, it makes a little bit of noise when the fans are at full speed, something that was easy to fix by applying a thin layer of white duct tape to the insert tabs to keep it more secure. I do love the cable management on the front side of the case with 2 large pass-throughs with rubber grommets. Though I would say for the rear side cable management, it could use a couple of additional tie-down points, but overall, excellent value and a total joy to build in. I did decide to swap out the rear fan for an Aorus ARGB one because I have a bunch of them sitting around, thank you Gigabyte, and really wanted to bling out the system. Now as we spec this build out, it's about $1,875 US right now, which includes $750 for an RTX 3080 12GB. If we go with an air cooler, 1TB budget NVMe, stock fans, and non-RGB RAM, we can cut this down to just under $1,650. So let's roll the music and build the ultimate Ryzen 7 5800X3D gaming build, then we'll run it through some actual games.
You should just play that song.
Look to see your fella good. I'll keep you waiting and you're already drink too much. I'm coming up and you're already chased by the fast. I don't know where I'm heading, so don't ask for direction. I got this fever that just won't let me go. I got all the fire too strong for my body to hold, for my body to hold. So much for the city. This feeling hanging out, and I just can't get enough. And tomorrow can't wait. We're not done and tired yet, and we're just now getting started. And we're just now getting started. And we're just now getting started.
For gaming, this PC is a solid 4K performer using the RTX 3080 12GB GPU, and it could pump out a ton of FPS at 1440p if competitive shooters are your thing. Let's go through some games that don't often get benchmarked, starting with Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker Benchmark Tool using the maximum quality settings. Our Ryzen 5800X3D and RTX 3080 12GB was good for 108 FPS at 4K, and a ridiculous 195 FPS at 1440p. So obviously with a game like this, I'd crank up that resolution to 4K. World of Warcraft is currently on the new DragonFlight expansion pre-patch, and they made some radical improvements to the graphics. Currently the game uses 4 possible upscalers, and you cannot turn them off. So I went with the FSR 1.0 upscaling and maximum graphics settings, which look incredible. In raid testing at 4K, we got an average of 157 FPS and a 1% low of 95, way more than anybody needs for a game like World of Warcraft. Now next up is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Using the built-in benchmark and the second highest quality preset, we pulled an average 123 FPS at 1440p with 88 on the 1% lows, and in 4K we hit 79 FPS with a 1% low of 59. Watch Dogs Legions is another very demanding title, and our rig didn't disappoint. Using the built built-in benchmark and the second highest quality preset with DLSS turned off. At 1440p, we got 125 average FPS and 99 on the 1% lows. While at 4K, we pulled out 78 FPS and 65 for the 1% lows. And of course, with this title, we can always turn on DLSS for an FPS boost, especially at 4K. We wrap up with Horizon Zero Dawn using the built-in benchmark and the second highest quality preset at 1440p. We get a ridiculous 165 FPS with 114 on the 1% lows, and at 4K, 97 average FPS with 80 for the 1% lows. So should you build the 5800X3D, or should you consider the 13600K or even the Ryzen 7600X or 7700X? Now, quite honestly, any of these are great options if you're primarily gaming, and if you're even doing a little bit of production work like video editing. Despite the 13600K having quite a lead in the production work over the 5800X3D, it's still very impressive in those workloads. And I think only the most production-heavy users would even notice the difference between these two CPUs. As we looked at in our 13600K gaming PC build guide, the 5800X3D does have about a $70 overall platform advantage over the 13600K, which, if that helps you get a faster graphics card, might be the difference maker. But overall, any of these CPUs I just mentioned, the 13600K, the 5800X3D, or the Ryzen 7600X or 7700X, they'd be great options. Check out our recent i5 13600K gaming build guide, and stay subscribed for our upcoming Ryzen 7000 gaming build guides as well. Remember to check out all the product links down in the video description, including a full listing for this specific build. If you got value out of the video, give it a like as it really makes a difference to the channel. And of course, remember to subscribe and click that bell icon, that way you get notified when we release cool content. Now, if you're looking for the best gaming monitor to go with this build, check out our best overall gaming monitor guide here, or our best 1440p gaming monitor guide here. And we'll catch you on the next one.